Hey everyone, welcome to Miggy Talks, where my friend Miggy gets a chance to play video games that I personally haven't had the time to invest in. And today's game, No More Heroes, for the Nintendo Switch. Now, if I remember correctly, this game was originally on the Wii, and it was a very surprising title, but I'm going to let Miggy here talk. Miggy, how did you feel about the game?
Honestly, I didn't know how to feel about the game. I bought it because it was on sale. Didn't really know what to expect. Never heard of this title before, but it was really good in my opinion. I had a blast playing this game.
All right, excellent start. What's the story like for No More Heroes?
So the story is pretty straightforward, actually. You play as Travis, Touchdown, who is a guy who wound up getting himself in a situation where he becomes an assassin. And through some weird coincidence or series of events, he is now a part of this tournament, so to speak, to become the #1 assassin.
How exactly did he get into this position? He killed another assassin, correct?
Yeah, in the very beginning cinematic, it shows him fighting this guy with two what looks like revolvers, and the cinematic looks cool, and he's talking about it. He goes, this guy looked like he was a badass and he was going to get down, but he turned out to be a real letdown, killed him, and then he meets Sylvia, and Sylvia starts telling him about, the other ranking assassins. He killed the number 11, so now he's number 11. She's saying, why stop there? Why not aim for the top? And that's what he does.
So, did he kill this man by accident, or what happened?
Honestly, it doesn't really say. He just ends up fighting him. He gets an invitation to go to this place and meet him, and then they just fight.
No reason behind it, just
no
hey,
reason, just because he was there.
Oh, hey, you're someone I want to fight. Let's just do it. Seems a little silly.
This whole game was silly.
Really?
This whole game was silly.
Other than the main character, whose name is Travis Touchdown, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were there any other characters that were interesting to you throughout the story?
Yes, some of the bosses. There are 10 bosses in total, but the ones that really stuck out to me were the very first boss that you fight. He's the rank 10 assassin, goes by the name of Death Metal. This guy, I'll be honest, I wasn't impressed when I first saw him, because as soon as I saw him, he looks like Ganondorf from Legend of Zelda. But it's not until after the cutscene and you start fighting him where I was like, okay, this guy's actually really cool.
So you weren't that big a fan of his personality?
No.
You were a fan of the way he fought?
The way he fought, yes.
I'd categorize that in gameplay aesthetics, but nonetheless. Were there any other characters specifically for their personality or their portrayal that intrigued you?
Yes. Number 7 assassin, Destroyer Man.
I'm sorry, what?
Destroyer Man.
Destroyer Man?
Yes.
Wow, it sounds like someone has an inferiority complex.
He does not fit the look of an assassin. He has this whole attire of a superhero, but a very psychotic superhero, where he pretends to be this kind of scatterbrain, but is very twisted in the way he does things. He's very underhanded.
Oh, he's conniving.
Yes, conniving. Another character that was pretty well done, and it was a complete change from what I was getting used to, was the 6th assassin, Holly Summers.
I vaguely remember her.
So the way she is portrayed, all the assassins you fight before fighting her, they all have their own gimmick. They're all very bloodlust, very psychotic in their own way. She's more depressing than the other characters, which to me was kind of refreshing.
Refreshing? Someone that's suffering from depression is refreshing?
Well, a change of emotion, because from, like I said, all the other assassins I fought prior, they're all psychotic, and it was just like, okay, so this is how it's gonna go for every single one of them. She had her own personality to her.
I see. So even though she was a bit pessimistic, in a game that's all about outlandish behavior, seeing a change of personality felt more welcoming to you.
Yes.
Okay.
And honestly, it got me more invested in the game, because some of the things she said really kind of hit close, and I really, I was understanding what she was saying.
So she was relatable to you?
Yes.
Alright, to be honest, from what I remember, playing this game back on the Wii with my cousin, I don't think I could really relate to anyone in that game.
There's one last person I want to talk about.
All right.
I'm gonna butcher his name. It's a Russian name. He's the 4th ranked assassin. His name is Harvey Volodarsky. He's got a middle name, but it's so hard for me to pronounce. He is this really whacked out magician, but he was so funny. Like, just the way he interacted with Travis in their first encounter, because Travis goes in to see him or to go expecting a fight, and Harvey's putting on a freaking magic show for him before they fight. And he's like, well, anybody in the audience volunteer. And they shine the light on Travis. He's like, me?
All right.
Oh, man.
That sounds pretty funny. I'm surprised you didn't mention too many of the females. You only mentioned Holly Summers.
I did like Sylvia, but
Okay.
I don't know. I felt like her character, they tried too hard for her to be bitchy and then to actually like her.
Right. And I'm going to use the phrase that you had mentioned before recording. She was what you called a tsundere?
Yes, someone who pretends to be cold-hearted on the surface, but is actually loving on the inside.
All right. To be honest, I never even knew that term until you told me about it before we started recording, so I thought that was really interesting, calling her a tsundere. What about Travis Touchdown, though? How'd you feel about him?
Man, I love this character.
Oh, yeah?
I thought he was going to be overly obnoxious with his jokes, but I loved him. He reminds me a lot of Deadpool, or more specifically Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, which I loved.
Okay,
Huge
cool.
fan, all for it.
Interesting fact about Travis Touchdown. He was actually based off of Johnny Knoxville
Really?
from Jackass, yes.
You know what? That would explain a lot of the for his character model.
All right. Yeah. So he has that sort of outlandish personality. He's erratic, he's exciting, he's funny. Would you say that Travis is one of your favorite characters in the game, or the favorite?
By far my favorite.
All right, interesting. What about the gameplay? How does it handle?
Oh man, the gameplay. The gameplay is also pretty straightforward. It's a hack and slash game where you fight waves or groups of enemies, and the really cool thing is each enemy will have like a health bar. As soon as that health bar drains, instead of them just falling over, there is what I would call a execution sequence where a arrow will pop up on the screen and you have to move the cursor in the right direction to perform an execution. And if you perform it successfully, there is this really cool like slot machine effect where if you get lucky and you get the right number of the right icons to pop up, Travis would get certain abilities. One being, I would say he goes Super Saiyan because his hair glows yellow and his katana that he uses becomes even brighter and bigger, and he just pretty much one-shots any enemy.
I see.
There is another power-up that he gets where once he gets it, he goes raspberry on the blueberry cheesecake. But I was just like, what? Where basically he's just shooting projectiles out of his katana.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. You mentioned that this katana could extend, become bigger, shoot projectiles. I noticed when I looked at the cover of No More Heroes, his main weapon doesn't really look like your conventional sword.
That's because it's not.
Right. You mind trying to explain what kind of weapon he has?
It's if I had to say, it looks kind of like a lightsaber, but with their own take on it. It kind of looks like a fluorescent light bulb.
A fluorescent light bulb. Okay.
But without the actual cover on it. It's just the wire and then the handle, and that's it.
That's pretty interesting. What about variety? Are there different types of weapons that you can use in this game?
So you do start off with your standard beam katana, and later on you do find this, I would call her a merchant. You find her, I don't remember her name, but anyway, she's the one that you go to get more weapons. She does a prototype weapon called the Tsubaki.
I'm sorry, what? The Tsubaki?
The Tsubaki. It's basically her version of Travis's weapon, but obviously a little bit stronger and faster than his original. And later on, you can get parts from her to increase that katana specifically. But as you progress through the game, you start getting more weapons from her. My personal favorite being this katana that you find. It's an older katana. You give it to her, and then she makes you her own version of the katana. But it doesn't have the blade, it's got your traditional formal katana handle, and it turns on just like a lightsaber, except there's no metal part at the top. It's just the beam.
So, a Star Wars lightsaber.
If I had to compare it, it looks like the Darksaber from Star Wars.
All right, that's pretty interesting. With regards to the gameplay, you mentioned that Travis Touchdown has to fight all of these other assassins to become the number one assassin.
Yes.
So with that being said, there are quite a few boss fights in this game, correct?
There are 10 in total. Well, you know what? I will say 9 in total, because one of the boss fights is not even a boss fight.
What is it exactly?
So after you get to the 5th assassin, his name is Let's Shakes. Really weird punk rock looking dude. He has this giant machine that's got a big brain on the top of it. It looks like, how would I describe it? It's a trash can with a giant brain on top of it with a freaking glass dome on top of it. But when you meet him, he's doing all these like sequences for the machine, and it's powering up, and him and Travis are ready to fight. He's about to initiate the fire sequence when he just gets taken out by some random stranger.
Random stranger as in another assassin?
I mean, you find out afterwards who he is, but so he gets taken out by Henry, who is another assassin, but I do not know his rank, and I don't think they mention his rank in the game. One boss fight that was really fun was the 4th assassin, which was Harvey, the Russian magician. What I liked about his boss fight was he will do this one chant, and your entire screen will turn upside down, and you're fighting him upside down, and your controls are reversed. So that was pretty fun. It took me a little bit to get used to that, but after I did it, I beat him. He was fun.
Were there any other fights that stood out to you in some way?
I would say Death Metal, the very first assassin you fight, mainly because Death Metal will make clones of himself, and they will all attack you at the same time. You have to take each one of them out very fast, or else they will all gang up on you and pretty much you die.
Sounds interesting. What about the visuals, the look of some of the characters?
Oh man, each character was unique in their own way. They all had their own style. One character that I thought was really well done was Holly Summers. And I don't know, I really liked the way her character looked, mainly because she was more on the traditional Japanese side, which I like. She had the black short hair. Her skin wasn't really what you would say on the fairer side. It's more pale. That's my own personal taste of what I like.
What about in terms of difficulty? How hard was this game for you?
Honestly, not hard at all. I only died my very first time when I got to the second to last boss, who goes by the name of Bad Girl. And the main reason I died to this chick was before fighting her, all the bosses they had their own unique gimmicks, but it was pretty straightforward. You hit them till they die. This chick would do this possum play where she will collapse, go to her, fall on her legs, and if you get too close to her or try to attack her when she's in this state, she will insta-kill you. Did not matter what your health was like, did not matter whether or not she had one hit left, she would insta-kill you. And that caught me off guard, because I got really close to beating her my first try, and I got greedy with my hits, went in when she was in that state, and she insta-killed me. The second time, I was playing really cautiously, and I guess I got a little too close to her radius where it triggered the effect and she killed me. And I got very mad, but I didn't get mad to the point where I wanted to rage quit. I got mad to the point where I'm like, I know I can beat you.
How many times did it take for you to beat her?
I would say roughly about 3 times. And it took me about an hour to beat this boss. And all the other bosses prior took me about 15 to 20 minutes.
What side notes can you tell me about this game? Anything that really stuck out to you that doesn't fit into the category of story or gameplay?
So one really interesting feature that they put in is when you're in Travis's apartment, you can obviously go through his wardrobe, his bathroom where you go to save, but there's a little tab where you can click it and you get to interact with this kitten he has in his apartment. So I thought that was pretty cool. Also, the way you level up in this game I thought was interesting because it reminded me of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, where Travis has to go to the gym and literally lift weights to increase his stats. So I thought that was pretty cool.
All right. Anything else?
His motorcycle. You can drive in this game. It's partially open world mixed with linear gameplay. So he has this motorcycle, or souped up motorcycle, and the driving's a little wonky, mainly because you can run over civilians, but if you get too close to a car, it will forcibly correct you. And if you barely run into anything, you will just go flying off the motorcycle.
All right. Any other aspects about this game that stuck out to you?
Just the overall aesthetic. The game was visually appealing, even though it's supposed to be more on the older side. I had a good time playing it.
What about the humor?
So the humor is a bit much at times, but that's not to say that I didn't like it. The main thing that I really liked for their jokes was the fact that Travis was desperately trying to hook up with Sylvia, and she would constantly lead him on and taunt him. There is a scene specifically where they're in a limo, and she's talking to him about participating in the tournament, and Travis tries to touch her leg, and she kicks him out the door. Literally kicks him out of the car. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, instead of using a rating system 0 out of 10, 5 out of 10, we're going to use the quote system. Certain words that we would use to associate with this game, and from there, Miggy, you will elaborate on why you use those words. So what would be the first word you would use to describe this game?
The first word I would use would be graphic.
How so?
Well, graphic in the way that there's so much blood and there's so much adult humor that I did not expect from a Nintendo game. I've always thought of Nintendo as more on the family-friendly type of side. So this completely caught me off guard with how much blood there actually was, the fact that there was blood at all, and just all of the toilet humor.
So graphic because of the violence and the language.
Yes.
What about your second word?
The second word I would use as random.
Care to elaborate?
This game is just random in all sorts of ways. From the writing to the way the story plays out, mainly because at the very end, when you're fighting the last boss, they kind of just make up an ending on the spot. And when you beat that boss, you can choose which ending you want. For me, I chose the real ending. You fight another boss, and again, the writing is just made up on the spot. It's like, I'm your half brother. That's actually my wife. Like, oh, it all makes sense to me now. I'm like, what? None of that makes sense.
Okay, so random because the storytelling is a bit chaotic.
Yes.
All right. Can you give me one more word?
The last word I would use for this game would be retro.
How so?
Retro in the way of how the game feels and looks. It made me feel as though I was back in the early 90s playing a video game for the first time. From the driving being really bad, and there was a specific segment towards the end of the game where instead of your standard loading screen, it would take you into a mini game, and you're in this mech shooting projectiles at what I would say they look like Space Invaders. If anybody's familiar with the game Space Invaders. But I mean, everything about this game had that feel to it. Very old school type of game mechanics and storytelling.
All right. So, according to you, Miggy, this game is graphic, it is random, and it is retro.
Yes.
Who do you think would like this type of game?
Honestly, maybe the older gamers, and who knows, maybe some of the younger gamers, because it's something different than what is being produced nowadays.
All right. It's something different. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, with that being said, myself and Miggy, we're not here to tell you whether or not you should or shouldn't buy this game. That's entirely up to you. If you are a fan of gratuitous violence, this may be the game for you. Or even if you're a fan of a bit more humor in your video games, games that don't take themselves too seriously, this could potentially be the game for you. But with all of that being said, Miggy and myself, we hope you guys have a fantastic day. And even if you don't, we hope you guys have a better tomorrow. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, everyone.